I'm here with my favorite man, Mr. Adam. Thank God he's here. Thank God we got him. And thank God we're
Baruch
going to talk
Hashem,
about a lot
Benny.
of things. Baruch Hashem, Rebbe. Thank God. So I'm glad that he's here, and I'm glad we got everything moving. Adam, first let's do an intro. How are you feeling? How's Menek doing? How are you doing? What's going on, brother?
Life is good, sunny South Florida down here in Miami, Fort Lauderdale. We're here at Valuetainment headquarters. I just finished the PBD podcast. We talked about what's going on with Trump. We talked about what's going on in Israel. We talked about Pride Month. We talked about feminism. We talked about politics. We talked about business. We talked about Elon Musk. We talked about a range of topics. So I'm excited to do anything and everything that my friend Benny wants to do.
So I put a list together. We're going to go for the first topic. This is a topic I really want to talk about for a long time. And I don't think people are realizing this, but it's the economic world war. I don't know if people realize that we are in an economic world war with this now tug and pull with regards which currency is going to be the top dog in the world. So what do you think about that? And obviously this has to do with what's going on with Brics, the US dollar inflation. What is your assessment? What is this economic war? Am I assessing this right? Am I looking at this right? What do you think, brother?
Well, the dollar dominates, right? But for how long, right? So, there's a word that I had to Google it recently. It was hegemony. And that's when one country sort of dominates the world. And the United States has had hegemony over the entire world because everything's based on the US dollar. Now, my specialty, if you will, is in finance, but more on personal finance, right? So, but you also have to understand what's going on in the macro economy. So I remember being in Colombia, of all places. This was a few years ago. So this wasn't like 10 years ago or anything like that. And a buddy of mine who's in the finance space starts telling me about Brics, but it was just BRIC at the time, I want to say, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and then South Africa came on board. And I said, well, what's going on here? What do you mean? What are they trying to do? I don't understand what's going on here. So I think what we all know is the following. China is coming for the top spot, right? The U.S. is number one in GDP. Fact check me. I think we're at 25 trillion total GDP, and China's at 20, number two. They're supposed to have the China 2025, China 2030. We'll see when they're going to overtake us. But we all know that China, Russia, you can throw Iran in the mix. You can throw North Korea in the mix. They're all, with the help of Venezuela as well, avoiding U.S. sanctions. They're not just going to sit down and take U.S. dominance and the U.S. dollar hegemony over them forever. Now, if I was another country around the world, I would have great pause aligning myself with communist China, authoritarian Russia, purveyor of evil Iran, complete socialist, call it communist Venezuela, full-on socialist, dictator, communist, whatever you want to call it, North Korea. So the one question I have is, why is India aligned with China? India is the largest democracy in the world. They're competitors with China. They recently just passed China for the greatest population in the world, 1.5 billion, I want to say 1.4. But India's population is growing. Their youth is growing, whereas China is an aging population. So we're going to see what happens with Brics here. But to bring it back to your point, this economic, you called it a world war, economic warfare.
Yeah, I feel like it is. I mean, honestly, too many countries coalitioning together in order to beat the dollar. That's pretty something. I don't think we ever had that in history, that we had such unified.
So I always ask myself, put myself in the shoes of Xi, put myself in the shoes of Putin, put myself in the shoes of even Modi, who just got reelected. Brazil, Lula, right? I don't know when Brazil joined BRICS. I assume it was prior to Bolsonaro. I don't know the timeline. But if you put yourself in the shoes of any of these leaders, what's the number one role of a leader of a country? To serve their country's best interests. So they have to align with themselves with the powers that be that will enable their country to thrive, right? You look at a country like Argentina, and they just recently elected this guy, Javier Milei. You familiar with this guy?
Yeah, Javier, yes.
So we've seen South America, of all places, speaking of Brazil, this shift to the left. We know Venezuela is socialist. They just elected the first female president.
Right.
She's
Jewish, obviously.
Is she? I don't know.
Yeah. I go Wikipedia. Her parents come from, I think, Lithuania,
Marxist,
1920s.
also Marxist.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Socialist. So this continent, Latin America, is shifting left. But meanwhile, you have a new leader like Javier Milei, who was elected to tear down the bureaucracy that has plighted Argentina for decades. High inflation, high unemployment, low value of their currency. And what he's famous for is he carries a chainsaw around with him to symbolize he's cutting all the fat.
Right.
And he's taking off like, afuera, afuera. He's a showman. And he said, I'll never do business with a communist. I'll never do business with China. I'll never do it. And you know what? I'm on Team Israel. I'm not on Team Terrorist. So here's a guy that is making waves. And by the way, within his first year, maybe even in 6 months, I want to say that he's made some massive improvements to the economy already. So it's interesting when you believe in free market capitalism and not communism, what your country can do. So we'll see what happens to Mexico. We'll see what they end up doing. But Brics, I don't, if I'm a leader of a country, I totally understand why I want to put my country first. You know, the term nationalist gets a bad term, right? Especially when you put a white nationalist in there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or the Nazi party, the Nationalist Socialist. Okay, all right, we have a problem here. But to be a nationalist or to have patriotism in America, you know, Donald Trump gets a lot of heat for saying America first. Well, with the globalist agenda, no borders, open society of George Soros. All right, aren't you supposed to put your country first? So it's a different dynamic. Now, do I want America to lead? Do I believe that America is the one superpower of the world that has the right alignment with our morals and our values and our democracy? Yes. But if we do not fill that, if there's a void in the space, who's going to fill that? Is it China? Is it Russia? Who's it going to be? And I would like U.S. to, quite frankly, sustain United States hegemony over the rest of the world, because I think we are the number one leader, the number one country. We are that city on a shining hill.
So do you think the U.S. is right now competing? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a competition here. What's happening is that they're, I think, deliberately giving it over by neglecting the action of prevention.
So why do you say that?
Because if the U.S. dollar and if the U.S. economy was strong and was not weakened, there would have been no place for a vacuum like China to go to Russia. Listen, come join me. Go to South Africa, come join me, or even Brazil and these other countries. There has to be some deliberate, neglect by the U.S. government that has been able to hold strong throughout the globe, hold peace throughout the globe, in order to prevent themselves from getting to another world war, another depression. But it seems to be that they're deliberately willing to get to another depression and potentially another world war, especially this administration. Whatever anyone says, this administration is literally run by an incompetent individual.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that would agree with you about Biden. I think the United States, more than ever, has to remember the following. Are we complete isolationists? I don't see the benefit of that. Are we complete interventionalists and get involved in every single conflict around the world? I don't see the benefit of that. Needless wars, countless of trillions of dollars. So there needs to be a balance of where we're at in the world. So there's hard power, there's soft power, there's alliances, there's partners. We need to remind ourselves, or we need to remind our partners who we stand for, what we stand with, right? And that's the problem I have with Biden right now, especially in the Israel-Gaza conflict. You know, in the Bible it says no one can serve two masters. What team are we on? Are we on our ally side, or are we on the terrorist side? Quite frankly, now you can believe in humanity and provide humanitarian aid and assistance, but be steadfast with your ally. I don't like what's going on there. You know, Trump sees this as Biden's Vietnam, quite frankly, and he's doubling down on Israel. We all know what Trump has done in the category of pro-Israel, moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And we know what Jared Kushner has done with his time as being the senior advisor to Trump. But also, I sort of, this might be not common thought maybe, but I believe that Jerome Powell, chairman of the Fed, has the best interest of the United States. I believe that Janet Yellen has the best interest of the United States. I believe that Steve Mnuchin, the former Secretary of the Treasury prior to Janet Yellen, had the best interest of the United States. I believe that the people we have in power do have the best interest of the United States in mind. And if they don't, what the hell is going on here? But they just have different objectives. But I think it's clearer and clearer.
Well, in reality, many, I'm sorry for cutting you off, many errors of individuals are from the greatest of intentions, of the best intentions. Just because they have the want for helping the United States doesn't mean their solution is going to work.
No, I totally understand what you're saying, Benny. You know, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I'm with you.
Right.
What do we do as a country? So what are our options here? Let's sequence this out. Let's go down the list here. What are we going to do to prevent Brics? I don't know. What's the solution?
I don't think you can. Can anymore. So, but for sure, suing all, just a side point. I know it's not to the top, but it is to the financial topic. But suing every crypto exchange in the U.S., which there are only four, about 4 or 5 that are really strong, suing every single one of them is not helping the Brics project. In order to combat it, all it's doing is just inflating it. Because what's happening is all these countries like Brazil, they're all adopting Bitcoin as their currency reserve. And we're not even adopting currency. We're doing this stupid EFT. Okay, the EFT is nice and fine, but you're still suing everybody. You get granted in one hand, but sue us in the other hand. It's a little bit complex.
Who's suing who exactly?
SEC is suing Kraken. They have a lawsuit against even Coinbase. They have a lawsuit against Gemini. There's a bunch of lawsuits against regulations. I don't know what regulations they're doing, but then you have companies like Amazon cornering all markets of e-commerce. Literally, they have a rule in Amazon, just to give an example, that if you have an item at $39.99, you cannot sell the same item of yours somewhere else at less price. And if you do, you get delisted as a buy now product. They have actually ability to scrape other sites. This is the craziest thing that's happening. So where's the free market here?
So who is that? Gary Gensler of the SEC?
I believe so, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And they're suing who? Kraken?
Kraken is already in a lawsuit. Binance is in a lawsuit. So Kraken, Binance, they all have money transfer licenses. And then you have situations like Coinbase is being sued. Coinbase wanted to do lending with cryptocurrency. They say, you're not a bank, but they have the same licenses for a bank. So what's the difference? It doesn't make sense. If it's a free market, let it be a free market. So on one hand, they're not letting people corner other markets. And the other hand, Amazon, all these big players, Walmart are able to corner every market. And then you don't have no more mom and pop shops in the city for sure. New York City real estate is dead. 80% of occupancies, storefronts are none. It's 80% non-occupied. That's why they're doing a whole zoning revolution in order to rezone all the commercial buildings into condos. Let's get housing more. But getting more housing also not going to help.
So let me ask you, what's your biggest fear? Because you're way more in the crypto space than I am. You know, I own some Bitcoin. I got some Ethereum. I got some coins out there, but this isn't my day-to-day. You know, I know a lot of the fears are the central bank digital currencies. What's going to happen with that? You're saying that Gary Gensler and the SEC suing some of these things. Binance, who's the guy that founded Binance? CZ.
Apparently he had to run away. He's in jail or something.
He's going to jail. What's going on now? We see what happened to Sam Bankman-Fried. Now that's not exactly indicative of all players.
I know, but I knew Sam was a fraud. I knew it was a fraud. I never opened an FTX account.
So
No
what's
guy
your
who has
concern
curly
then?
hair like this is normal. I mean, that's
No
like,
guy that wears shorts when sitting with presidents on a panel can be trusted.
yeah,
Period. And
exactly.
no guy that's wearing cargo shorts should ever be getting laid. I don't know. I don't know what's going
I
on
don't
with
know
that.
what the hell is going on. That orgy penthouse over there.
What's your concern? I guess from the
The
crypto
concern
perspective.
is that America has to already embrace the crypto space and embrace this kryptonization of this digitalization of currency. Because if we're not going to do it, these other countries are going to do it faster,
Yeah.
and because these other countries need to do it. For example, El Salvador did it. He has hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin for his country, and he has taken his country out of poverty. So you got to understand there is a need for adopting cryptocurrency. I mean, don't think that the Swift has not adopted cryptocurrency. The Swift systems have adopted blockchain with no doubt. They're using a chain, I believe, Chainlink as their blockchain for Swift now. But the slow pace, and this is the biggest problem with America. China is a one leader country. When they make a decision, it's done and it's executed because it's one guy doing it. In America, you have so much bureaucracy. It could take 3 months to a year just for something to maybe happen. That slow pace is good, but too slow is not good. So either the people who are running the show get a little bit smarter, or we get smarter people in the local government and the higher governments, right? Or we just continue this way and we're going to be outpaced from every other country in the world.
Yeah. Great point. And look, just for everyone out there listening, if I had the choice of being in China under the control of the communist Chinese party or America under the
I choose America.
republic, I'm going to choose America every single time. But yes, when there's an autocrat or a theocrat or any sort of authoritarian leader or regime, you do what they say or you get beheaded or you're never seen again.
Yeah.
Yes, in America, it's slow, it's ugly. Watching the sausage get made in politics is not fun. It's an ugly process, but I trust our system. I trust our system way more than pretty much any system out there, especially China. But there's a whole conversation about, how big is government? Government bloat. I want a big government. I want a small government. How about this? An efficient government that
It's
gets
better
stuff
than,
done.
yeah,
That's what I think we're all looking for right now.
no doubt.
So
I'm with you on that one.
we're going to see what happens in the election that's coming up. But I know, one more point on crypto and regulation and free markets. 𝗪𝗡 Bukele was just reelected in El Salvador. He's got Bitcoins galore. He's doing great. I had some friends that were actually down there for the re-inauguration. But Trump spoke at the Libertarian event when they announced their candidate. And he said, you guys should all embrace Trump. Get behind Trump. The crowd booed. Some people cheered because they nominated one of their nobodies that never does anything. But he says, I'm going to be pro Bitcoin. I'm going to be pro crypto. So he's appealing to that audience. I don't see Biden doing that. So we'll see where it all plays out.
No, but that's very good because in the previous, when he was in his previous, I guess, term, he was against crypto. He doubled down against crypto. So I'm like shocked that he's even adopting Bitcoin.
Well, look, love Trump or hate Trump, whatever it is, he's a very polarizing figure. And I don't mean this in a negative way. Trump doesn't have a firm ideology. Trump will flip and move and shift and, to where the market is and what the populace is. So in 2016, why did he give a shit about crypto? It wasn't a thing. 2024, hey, maybe. All right, libertarians. Okay, so, some people say that he flip-flops. Some people say that you grow and you change your mind. So which one is it? I don't know, but it's good to see that at least coming on board with the crypto space.
No doubt, no doubt. And I would add that it's not necessarily growing. It's called adapting. Every business person adapts to the reality that's in front of you. But if you're a leader who just focuses on, no, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, you're just putting yourself up for failure because you got to adapt to the reality. You can have an idea, but the reality today does not let your idea even come to fruition. That's for sure fact.
Right. Adaptation, survival of the fittest, Darwinism. There it is right there. Darwin and Trump, some of the greatest adapters of all time.
Definitely. I want to get to the next topic. I think I messed up with my topic. This public perception. That's the wrong one. But future of Netanyahu and the mishaps of his verbiage. So I'm going to talk about the two things that he messed up. Two things. One is really his fault, and the other one is not really his fault. So and then we'll talk about his future. I mean, he's supposed to come to Congress. I think he's snubbing Biden the same way he's snubbing Obama by going to speak to Congress. I think that's a good thing in a way. I think he needs to get his voice out there. He's a great speaker. He can really get the message out there. But the first mishap is this stupid Amalek thing that he quoted. And what I get upset as a person who is from Israel, who's Jewish, who's also pro America, pro freedom of everything. I'm not pro war. No one likes war. But I want just for the public to understand one thing. As a Jew, we're a population of 15 million. You kill 1,000 plus with home invasions. Don't expect us not to come knocking on your door and all your doors. It's gonna come. I mean, we're not being passive Holocaust situation here. We're gonna come on knocking. Now, you can debate on how we're knocking. Maybe we're not knocking in the war good. Maybe we're making mistakes. We're human. Fog of war. That already is all debatable. But him invoking this Amalek nonsense, I think is one of the biggest mistakes because people don't understand the Bible. They don't understand what Amalek is. In the Jewish perspective, Amalek is a nation that wanted to wipe us out of the exodus of Egypt. So in our belief, we say those who want to wipe you out, you wipe them out. And we've only attempted it once in history. And that's it. There's no other place in history that you'll find us attacking and starting a war. What say you on this point?
So I cover Israel and Hamas and Gaza and Free Palestine and the gays for Gaza and Iran and Netanyahu and everything that's going on in the war cabinet. I follow this closely. This is the first I've heard of this word, Amalek. How do you say it?
Amalek. He quoted it in the beginning. Yeah. And everybody said, right. So then everybody said, because he quoted Amalek, the Jews are doing genocide. Because in the Bible, there was a time we had to wipe out Amalek in the book of Samuel. So they're saying, okay, you see, we're genocidal. That's where it all began. That Netanyahu was a genocidal maniac or whatever it is they want to say, which I don't agree with that. But the question is, could have he used different verbiage? Was this the wrong time and place to even invoke such religious ideas? Why make it into religious war? I mean, there's so many things we can discuss about that in regards to his future.
When did he invoke this, Amalek?
Literally about a week and two after the October 7th.
Okay. And what's the significance of it? When did it happen in the Bible, or when did it happen in Jewish history?
Two events. One happened when the Jews left Egypt. Amalek came to start a war when we were suffering for 2 years, 240 years or 210 years of suffering in Egypt, slavery, and comes this nation and says, oh, you slaves, we're going to kill you out. So we fought a war, we won the war, and then God said from now on, this Amalek nation, do not, you have to remove the name of Amalek in your system. But Amalekis can, in the time, convert, no problem. They can come into Judaism and the Jewish faith. But in regards to the second term, and this is where everybody jumped at it, where in the Bible, Samuel was given authority to King Saul, the first king of Judaism, and the Israeli nation, to wipe out all of Amalek.
So this might be a little inside baseball. So right. I have this my phone open over here, and I just Googled Amalek. This is not I don't speak Hebrew.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm an American who's a Zionist, that's Jewish, that loves Israel, and I've been a handful of times, but I don't speak Hebrew well. Beseda, this, that, the other. But that's not my history in terms of I didn't grow up there. So I learn something new every day, and I try my best to process new information and look at information and not necessarily be completely biased, even though I'm a proud Zionist, right?
Yeah.
Just like I love America, I'm a proud American. I criticize Joe Biden, I criticize Donald Trump, I criticize Congress. I see mistakes all the time. That doesn't make me anti-American. One of the beautiful things about being an American is democracy and freedom of speech. Israel has that. Good luck having freedom of speech in Hamasistan. So Amalek, you say, is referred in the Hebrew Bible as the enemy nation of the Israelites. This is what I'm Googling. The name Amalek referred to the descendants of Amalek, the grandson of Esau, who was what? The brother of
Jacob.
Isaac?
Jacob.
See,
so you're good. So it means we're cousins with them in a sense.
And Esau maybe had red hair. I don't know. I'm trying to remember okay.
Yeah.
They live in the territories of Canaan. Islamic tradition considers Amalek to be an Arabian tribe in pre-Islamic Mecca or Medina, North African descendants of Ham and Noah. Okay, cool. So here's what I can tell you. If I don't know about Amalek, Not many people do.
Exactly. So,
Um, so
so,
what?
so why would he say it? It was a mistake, I think.
So, because he's very smart. People think that Netanyahu is this war criminal savage. Do you understand that he's what? This is his fifth or sixth term as president or prime minister
Oh
of
yeah,
Israel. He
yeah.
is
Like
shrewd. He is smart. He is cunning. He knows his stuff. Is he perfect? No. Is anyone perfect? No. Has he aligned himself, I guess, with the Likud party to the right wing, the ultra orthodox? Yes, because he's a politician first. In my humble opinion, he loves Israel, but he doesn't want to lose his power. Now, do the people of Hamas, or even certain people in Gaza or Palestine, do they have a problem with Netanyahu or Israel because of Amalek? No, because they believe in river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
no
How
matter
much
what.
do they want of it? Some of it, most of it? No, all of it. So this is what people I think understand, but maybe the people that don't really look into this all that much. I don't know if most of your audience is Jewish or
Well,
um,
for all over, all over.
okay,
We market the platform, the
great.
channel
But
very well.
guys, what are we talking about here? Where I mean, Hamas is ISIS, Hamas is Al Qaeda, Hamas is Al Nusra, Hamas is Hezbollah, Hamas is. You go down the list of just jihadist extremist. People think that they were just like this nice group that came in. All right, you're elected. They were elected after the disengagement in 2006. I want to say
Five and
2005.
six. Yeah, yeah. 5 and 6.
And what did they do to Fatah? They
They,
killed him.
yeah, threw them off buildings,
That's
murdered
like the
them.
Republicans winning the Congress and
Did
the
they start throwing?
presidency, and they kill all the Democrats. That's what you're dealing with here.
That's exactly what you're dealing with.
Okay.
It's
All
crazy.
right. So those are the people we're dealing with. By the way, it's been almost 20 years. Have they had an election ever since? No. Because when an Islamic extremist group comes into power, they don't say, hey, guys, 4 years, maybe 2 terms, 8 years. Who's up next? No, we are. So I find it interesting that, the people that are running Hamas are all billionaires in Qatar. Whereas the
And living
people,
in Qatar. Then they don't live
yes,
in Gaza or the West Bank.
why would they? And the people are suffering. And, this whole talk of a ceasefire. Yeah, there was a ceasefire on October 6th. Hamas broke it. Okay.
Right.
So now in America, because you're in New York, I'm in South Florida, we've seen what's going on. You're probably not far from Columbia
Well,
University.
yeah. But don't even forget
What are you?
CUNY, Queens
What are you, a half
College,
hour,
right
hour?
here.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is the breadbasket of anti-Semitism on college campuses. Then you have schools like Cornell. You've got schools like even Harvard, UCLA, everything that's going on the West Coast, these liberal cities, even schools like Emory, Minnesota. We see it all over the country. These kids, God bless their heart. They say that when you're young and you're not a liberal, you have no heart. When you're older and you don't have and you're not a conservative, you have no brain. God bless them. But they have no clue what river or what sea they're talking about. They
No doubt.
couldn't find any of these countries on a map. They have no clue what is going on. And I actually talked about this with the comedian Brian Callen on one of the shows we do here with Vinny, The Unusual Suspects. I said these strange bedfellows, this marriage of the jihad Islamists and the woke progressive left. And when did this happen? They say that politically, especially ideology-wise, whether think if it's America, whether it's around the world, around the globe, when you think of the far right and you think of the far left, you think of it as linear, right? Well, they're the far right and the far left. Well, politically, it's called the horseshoe theory. Are you familiar with this?
No. Teach
The
me.
horseshoe theory basically states like if a horseshoe, the bottom of the horseshoe is actually closer to each other than in the middle.
Really?
If you're looking at a horseshoe, the bottom of the horseshoe and each side of the horseshoe are way closer together than the middle. They say you got to hold the middle. You got to hold common sense. Common sense is a con. So on the far right extremists, jihadists, Islamists, and the far left Marxist, communist, collectivists, They actually have a similar ideology in many regards. They will silence you if you don't believe in what they're saying. We've seen the protests. They're not talking to anybody. If you have a different perspective, they will, in some cases, kill you. There's no democracy in this. There's no freedom of speech in this. It's my way or the highway. And we can go down the list here of the similarities between these mindsets, but they're extremists. Ultimately, what am I saying? The far left and the far right have one thing in common. They're absolute extremists. They're radicals. They will die for their cause. When you're an extremist, when you are a radical, you're not willing to compromise. You're not willing to have reason. Well, I see it from your perspective. So look at what's going on in Israel to tie it all back together. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. In the charter of Hamas, it says the death and destruction of Israel and all Jews around the world. Okay, you know who believes them? I do. I actually believe that they want the death and destruction. So during the Oslo Accords with Clinton, it was Yasser Arafat that came and met with, whether it was Yitzhak Rabin, I don't remember who it was, the president.
Rabin. They signed the
they signed the deal. They had it ready to go. Clinton thought there'd be peace in the Middle East. He came home. He had a conversation with his crew, and they said, 95% of our requests is not enough. We want 100%. So what that signaled to me is, unless they get 100%, they're not dealing with you. So they believe that this is their land. They believe that the Jews should not have a Jewish state.
Right.
They want to free Palestine from the river to the sea. And, many people, for whatever reason, believe that. How many Arab countries, Muslim countries are there in the world? 50 countries.
They populate literally the whole Middle East.
There's 2 billion people. And by the way, most of them are good people. They're not extremists. They're not all extremists. But what's 10% of 2 billion people? 200 million people?
Yeah. 200 million believe in jihadist.
What's 1%? 20 million people. That's the population of freaking Canada that are going around ready to kill. So there's one Jewish state. It's the only democracy in the Middle East. It's the only country in the Middle East, as far as I know, that being gay isn't a crime. So it boggles my mind. Right now is Pride Month, right? June.
Yeah.
And there was this intersection. It was so weird. Ben, I don't know if you saw this in Philadelphia. They're doing this Pride Parade. The Pride Parade is going on at the same time as a pro-Palestine parade.
Right.
And they intersect and they run into each other. And, the gays for Gaza, if there's anything that is memorable, this gays for Gaza, the ridiculousness, the absurdity of this, that if you are in Gaza and you say gays for Gaza, they'll throw you off a roof, they'll kill you. You can literally say gays for Gaza in Israel, and it's not a big deal. That's a democracy. That's freedom of speech. So it's called intersectionality. It's this oppressor-oppressed mentality, this critical race theory. So the gays for Gaza intersect with the gay pride, intersect with the protest, and they're like, hey, they get into arguments, are we on the same team or against each other? And there's this big confusion of what are we even doing here? They start yelling and start chiding each other. It was a very ridiculous way. It was what's my point? That is symbolic of the ridiculousness that is going on. There's no rhyme or reason. They're just supporting their oppressed brethren.
So I call those type of people walking contradictions. They are literally
contradiction.
That's all they are. I mean, how can you be pro gay, pro Gaza? I mean, pro Palestine when they don't believe in it? They just don't believe in it. They don't believe in you being gay. They will kill you. It doesn't make sense at all.
Cognitive dissonance. No, I'll choose one thing, but I'll forget about this one thing.
Right.
I'll tell you one quick story. I was in Israel. I took my mom to Israel for her first time in 30 years. This was July of 2023.
Wow.
In June, I believe that year, we were in PBD, myself and our team were in Bucharest, Romania, interviewing this guy called Andrew Tate, who I'm sure you know.
I know. No comment.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And there's some things that many people disagree with him on. I get it. Um, and I remember doing that interview, and I flew back to Miami. I picked my mom up. 24 hours later, I flew to Israel. And I took my mom to Israel for the first time in 30 years. And my mom, she's like, "Oh my God, it's grown so much. It's so amazing." And one day, I said, "Mom, you're going to go with your friends. I'm going to the beach in Tel Aviv. I'm going to walk around Tel Aviv. I'm going to go out. I'm going to meet some friends out there." And I remember seeing two things, very, very lasting memories. Because when you walk into the gates of Jerusalem, as an example, they say men on one side, women on another. There's a lot of people that are confused about gender these days and sexual orientation. I said, which way you going, 𝗙𝗪𝗵𝗵? But I'm at Tel Aviv, and they have these Orthodox religious alternating beach days where men can go on one day and then women can go on the next day and then men, because the men can't be with the women.
Yes.
Okay. So I was like, oh, wow, pretty traditional, pretty, dare say it, like extreme. Okay. But in a familial, biblical, respecting men and women way, great. And then a couple 100 yards up the road, it was the gay beach, and gay signs and gay flags everywhere in Tel Aviv. And that was the gay beach. Now, me, I'm not doing the beach with only men. No. Right? And I'm definitely not doing the gay beach with only men. I kept walking and going looking for the pretty girls. That's just me, Benny. I don't know.
No, it's okay.
But it's interesting to me. My buddy sent me a picture, Austin. He said, interesting to me, he was making fun of sort of the walking contradiction. He was at the gay beach. He goes, don't you realize that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. All the gay beaches will no longer exist. So the Gays for Gaza Brigade, this strange bedfellow relationship with the Islamists, you wouldn't be allowed to be on the beach, guys. So wake up time.
Yeah, they definitely got to wake up. So I think we can conclude that Netanyahu made maybe a intellectual failure of saying the word Amalek, because Piers Morgan's show has multiple times people discussing about this Amalek. People mentioned this, that all his guests have mentioned it. So I figured, was this a mistake? Now, the other mishap, I think in the PBD show, you mentioned that in Hebrew was different. Instead of it was a mistake, it was a mishap with that bombing. So I want to give more clarity for the viewers who might see it if they Google your name. The word takala in Hebrew is different than the word ta'ut. Ta'ut is a mistake. Takala is a mishap, which means we got misinformation of what was in the area. So their intelligence was a mishap because they didn't know there was a munitions area that were putting guns and weapons and munitions in that area. So they would have, if they would have known, they would have prevented any type of bombing near the area. So there's a huge difference between takala and and ta'ut, even though that in English, mishap and accident or mistake can be very close to each other in context. And I think that's what the biggest problem is. I think Israel has lost one war, and that's the war of perception in social
media.
The PR
war.
The PR war, exactly.
Yeah, well, there's winning the actual war, then there's winning the hearts and minds of the people around the world. And this is something that I think about all the time. Do I believe that Israel is committing genocide? No, I don't. Do I believe that the IDF does everything in their power to prevent civilian casualties? Yes. Roof knocks, leaflets, text messages, clear the area, get out of here. We don't want to have to do this. But what is Hamas doing? We've never seen warfare like this, where they embed themselves in civilian areas, in mosques, in schools, in homes, in shelters. So what are you supposed to do when they're shooting missiles into Tel Aviv, of all places, from this latest mishap? And they say, listen, that's the equivalent. Think about it. Whether you're pro-Israel, anti-Israel, pro-Palestine, think about it for a second. Any country, if you're America and New York City, if you're Mexico and Mexico City, if you're Brazil and you're Rio de Janeiro, or Sao Paulo, if you're Russia and it's Moscow, if you're London in the UK, if you're Paris, if it's France, Johannesburg in South Africa, go down the list, Beijing in China, and a terrorist group is shooting missiles into your most populated city, what do you want your leader to do?
No
What do you
doubt.
want your leader to do?
No doubt. You gotta
I know what
fight back.
America would do if MS-13 in El Salvador or in Mexico was raping and pillaging people in Texas. It would not even be a question, much less shooting missiles into Dallas, Texas. Bro, we don't play. So Israel, I think, is dealing with a few things. They'd rather be tough than weak, right? Like,
Right.
do we want to show strength or be sort of pacify this terrorist
No, the
regime?
passive is not even an option for Israel.
Not even an option at this point.
If you are passive to a jihadist entity, people don't understand what will happen the next day. This will be a continuous onslaught. There will never be. They have to listen, and I don't buy this nonsense that they say, "Oh, that the martyrs you're gonna breed more jihadists." Listen, there's already 200 million jihadists who want Israel out. Okay, what are you breeding more of? You're not breeding more of anything. They're already there. So, you need to take out the enemy. And unfortunately, war is war. We cannot change the fact that war has casualties, and it cannot be defined as genocide. If that was genocide, then the Syrian president was genocidal. Then the Yemenis, or the Houthis are genocidal. Yep. Then all them are genocidal who kill millions of people. Why, when there was a capture of 2,000 women in Sudan and in Nigeria, everyone was quiet of those Christian women being raped and captured? What do you think they're being captured for? I mean, or by these Muslim entities? Oh, no, there's no talk about them. It seems to be, what I feel is that the U.S., you have a culture of jihadist young individuals. That's what I feel is happening.
Well, you're not wrong, bro. And let me tell you, I've learned this because I've taken a step back and I realized the following: no Jews, no news.
Right.
They're not talking about what's going on, the millions of people that have died in Sudan, the tens of hundreds of thousands that have died in the civil war in Yemen for a decade now, the civil war that cost hundreds of thousands, not millions of lives in Syria. What's going on? We know still in Afghanistan, the corrupt, cruel dictatorship, theocratic regime in Iran, the Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi situation with these terrorist groups, Boko Haram, everything that's going on in West Africa, jihadist groups. Why would we talk about that? Let's focus on Israel.
Right.
There's only one country that's Jewish. Forget about the Muslims killing the Muslims. That's why I always say Gaza is the new BLM. What would I mean? Well, because there's black on black killings every single day in America.
And it
sucks and it's unfortunate. Whether it's Baltimore, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's Chicago, Chirac, whether it's any major city, there's no news. Hey, it's just another day. Let a cop kill a black guy. Let that happen. Oh my God. George Floyd. Oh, they're killing all of us out here. Front page riots, BLM. Well, they actually came out. It was a black professor from Harvard that said, listen, I'm going to do all the studies and I'm going to run all the numbers of actually what's happening here. And I've got some news for everybody. It turns out when it comes to low-level crime, there's some evidence that cops are like, hey, stop jaywalking. Hey, like little things, pushing up, rubbing against cars, whatever. There's some evidence that cops maybe can be racist. But actually, when it comes to killing people, falsely locking up people, the cops killing black individuals, it's anything but that. They actually use more caution because they don't want to have that perception as you used. And he came out with this evidence, and all the professors, all his colleagues said, don't put it out there, man. It's going to ruin the narrative. He said, what do you mean? This is the evidence I found. I had 8 legal scholars, 8 researchers doing all the research. He said, oh, you don't want me to put this out there? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hire 8 different ones to fact check this. Same result. He said, now I'm putting it out there. What do I mean? It's a narrative. I'm not interested in a narrative. I'm interested in the truth. And here's what I know. Nobody talks about what's going on in the rest of the world, but they want to focus on Israel. There's a massive war going on in Ukraine. Did we
No one
forget?
cares. Everyone forgot. Everyone
Did we
forgot.
not forget that everyone was wearing pins, Ukraine flags? Ukraine's nowhere in the news these days. If I'm the most upset person in the world, potentially, is Volodymyr Zelensky. He said, I was the hero. I was the man of the year. Now you're focused on Hamas. But it just goes to show that on October 8th, the next day, Benny, the world condemned Israel. There were people all over the world, even in America, well, Israel deserved this. The BLM chapter in Chicago put on a flying freedom fighter, Hamas signifying what they're doing. So whether Israel did before Israel did shot a single bullet, before they even responded. So they called it genocide when Israel attacked day one, because it took how long? Handful of days, a handful of weeks to put together
Right.
defense strategy and going into Gaza City. Genocide, 1,000 people dead. Genocide, 5,000 people dead. Genocide. They called it genocide no matter what. And then you saw the UN just came and had to basically redact all their numbers.
Right.
Because they say, we were absolutely wrong. It turns out a lot of the people they were killed were actually terrorists. We've seen South Africa basically try to commit
some international court
war crimes.
Like South Africa is going to educate us, right? Like
exactly. Now Germany, you want to see something ironic? Germany says it will arrest Netanyahu as Israel envoys appeals to Berlin to defy the ICC, the International Criminal Court. Germany is now coming after Netanyahu.
Right. The
war crimes.
The person who birthed the Nazism and Hitler.
The term genocide was birthed in Germany. Now they want to come after war crimes.
Right. That's already ridiculous. I think Netanyahu. I think what it is Netanyahu will win the next election. I'm being honest with you. That's what I think is happening. I think he will win the next election. And I'll give you another thing. I think they're afraid of Netanyahu. This nonsense that he's with the far right is ridiculous, because what made October 7th happen? So people didn't know this, and this was initially proposed before. Before Netanyahu became the prime minister, there was a person named, I forgot his name. Oh, my goodness.
Benny Gantz, Yair Lapid?
No, the other one that was there. His also name is, forgot. He's the bald-headed guy. He's a tech. Oh, my God. Off my hand. It's off my head. Anyway, he has provided 20,000 work permits to the Arabs from Gaza, to the Gazan people, and he has himself, right? He was warned that if he gives these permits, you're going to have an October 7th.
Are you talking about Naftali Bennett?
Naftali Bennett. There you go. I knew he was.
By the way, I actually really like that guy.
I like him also. I like him also, but he got so pissed off at Netanyahu's, tactic and then he ends up creating a coalition with an Arab group. He was the smallest Knesset party, formulating a government, and it was the biggest joke in the world. But then at his time, he gave 20,000 permits. They found video footage of those people with permittees scouting areas. So the person from Zaka actually said, I don't know if you know that the festival, the Nova Festival, was originally supposed to be in a different place. And then it was moved. So the guy from Zaka said, if they didn't move the Nova Festival to where it was, and those kids weren't massacred at that time and basically confused the Hamas, they had plans that they found. They were going to go to Ashdod with bicycles, with cars, with their air-powered troops, and killing literally synagogue. Their goal was to go to synagogues. Their goal was there. And the guy from Zaka is saying, I'm crying. When you see this, you should know every kid who died in the Nova massacre is a savior, is a hero. Because them being there, they saved tens of thousands of Jews. People don't realize the intent and the massacre of what they want to do. They were going to go crazy. What do you think? It could have been 10 times worse. people don't understand that. And that's where we're losing in the PR, because the information that we have to give too complex. And if investigations are going to come out, you're going to see that reality is these permittees, that they got these permits, they were warned, by the way. Naftali Bennett was warned that you will have this issue happening. So with that being said, people have to understand there's more to it than it seems. All this will be exposed literally after they win the war. They are winning the war. I don't see how anyone says they're not winning the war. The only thing that prevents them from winning the war quicker is because of all this nonsensical political intervention of war. Show me one war where politics intervenes with the war. You finish the war. They're like, you don't stop. Why would you stop? Like, the same thing happened with Trump, with ISIS. He goes in 3 weeks, they're dead. They're done. So that means 10 years, 8 years of Obama. What happened? Why was there such a delay? Because there was a, holding the reins on the war. And that's really what's happening. I think all this lawsuit against Netanyahu is ridiculous. I think people don't really understand the politics of Israel. This whole thing where they wanted to take down the Supreme Court of Israel, they should understand that the Supreme Court taking down of Israel, do you know why they want to take down the Supreme Court of Israel? Because the Supreme Court judges are the ones who select the next judges. There is no board or government body that selects the judge. It's the Supreme Court judges who select their family members. Literally, they're almost all family members. That's what the shtick was. It's like, how do you have your cousin here? How do you have this here? There's not even one Sephardic Jew. If people think about BLM and Black Lives Matter, think about the fact that we also have racism in Israel, where people are also racist to another type of ethnicity. You came from Iraq, you came from Ashkenaz, you came from this. There's also this ethnic kind of tribalism there, and people don't get it. That in Israel, that Netanyahu wanted to create a balanced government, and that for that they went against him. That's all it was. People don't get the politics of Israel, and that's the problem. Like, Israelis don't get the politics of America the same way. People don't get the politics, so that's the problem.
Well, I don't expect. I appreciate that breakdown. I don't expect the world to understand Israeli politics. I'm in America, and I know most Americans that don't understand American politics. So I always try to simplify. I don't know many countries' politics, right? Other than, especially, in democracies, I get China's politics. Right. One leader, one China. I get Russia's politics, Putin or nothing, right? I get these concepts, but I don't expect most people to understand every country's politics. But I will tell you this. I believe that every country, that every people want two things for their country: peace and prosperity, right? So one time I went to go see James Carville speak. You know who this guy is? The Raging Cajun. Yeah. He was an advisor for Bill Clinton. And he says, he's the guy who famously said, "It's the economy, stupid," right? And by the way, the economy is still the number one issue of what voters have on their mind in 2024.
People want food on their plate, on their tables, man.
Peace and prosperity. And he said, "I'll tell you what, guys. What didn't you like under the Clinton administration in the 90s? The peace or the prosperity? Which one?" Because we had peace and prosperity. Great. So I believe that all countries want that.
Same thing, yes.
Even the people in Gaza. The problem is the people that are running the show there, Hamas, they want death and destruction. So when it comes to the war here, the IDF and Hamas, it comes down to, this people basically saying it's the same thing. It's two wrongs don't make a right. To me, it comes down to intent. If Hamas could kill every single person in Israel, they gladly would.
No doubt.
If Israel wanted to kill every single people in Gaza, they could, but they don't.
Exactly. So they're restrained.
It's intent and this whole concept of proportionality. Well, you killed 1,200 people, so we can only kill 1,200. So what does that mean? You raped, pillaged, behead babies. Let's go, ladies. It's time to get... No, we're going after terrorists. So what's the solution? Bibi Netanyahu, speaking to him, I don't know what's going to happen here. I hear a lot of things where once they win the war, part of the reason he's prolonging the war is because he knows that maybe his time is up. We'll see. But peace and prosperity. Bibi put together his plan, Gaza 2035. So in 10, 11 years, knock on wood, what's his plan to transform Gaza or Palestine? And it comes down to three things. Number one, they're going to demilitarize Gaza. There's no way Israel is going to let this happen again. What does Israel want? They want peace. They can do their own prosperity. They don't need Gaza for that.
Right.
They just want security and a plan for peace, okay? And believe me, they're not going to be attacking Gaza once there's peace. There's no interest in that. So, the whole joke about peace, Israel wants peace and the Palestinians wants peace too. Yeah, they want a piece of you over here and they want a piece of you
right.
over here. What's going on with that?
I think ultimately the Gazans and the Palestinians have lost the ability and the unique opportunity to create a tri-state area in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they lost.
Part of that is number two is of Netanyahu's plan after demilitarized, that he wants to de-indoctrinate the youth.
Well, how are you going to do that?
So how are they going to do that? Well, you could say, well, they did it in Germany, right? There's not the Nazi party there. Well, they had to bomb the shit out of Germany.
Right. But there is a Nazi party today in Germany.
There's a Nazi party everywhere.
Right, but there still is. It's not that you're not gonna ever be able to eradicate 100%. But are they in power?
Just like the KKK exists here in the United States, just like neo-Nazis exist.
Right.
But are they the ones running the show?
No. Who knows? They did. They did.
Correct.
They did.
Adaptation. Right.
Right.
To me, that's the peace part. The prosperity part is the saddest part almost, because with the billions and billions of dollars, I don't even know how much, tens of billions of dollars that has poured into Palestine and Gaza specifically since 2005, the disengagement, they could be Dubai. They could be Singapore.
No doubt.
People think that Gaza is this desert wasteland. They're on the beach from the river to the sea. What sea? The Mediterranean Sea. They could be Tel Aviv. But no, they didn't focus. Hamas didn't focus on GDP, gross domestic product. They focused on GDT, gross domestic terrorism. So instead of schools, parks, playgrounds, hospitals, they built tunnels, bombs, and indoctrinated kids to go to jihadi summer camps.
Right. And by the way, if they would have done that, see, this is where the shtick is they don't understand. Then Israel would have to make concessions for growth for Gaza. For example, they would say, listen, we're building so much, we got no room. Let's create a peace deal. Give us more room. Israel would have no choice but say, okay, here's another 5 kilometers of area. I mean, think about that.
But you're absolutely right. And I know we want to get to other topics. I'll give you one last point to think about.
Go ahead.
A lot of people think that October 7th was premeditated by who? Iran. Because what's been happening all over the Middle East, with the help of your friend Donald Trump, the Abraham Accords.
Right.
They were peace deals with UAE, with Bahrain, with Sudan. Obviously there's deals with Egypt, with Jordan, that's been ongoing. But the next domino to fall was the big one, baby, Saudi Arabia. And we see what this guy, Mohammed bin Salman, is doing in trying to modernize Saudi Arabia. Because he's basically saying, look, we're a very oil-rich country, Saudi Aramco, $2 trillion market cap, but we need to diversify. And we need to get into sports leagues, and we need to get part of cultural, and we need to let women drive again, and we need to end this Wahhabism, this extremism. We need to modernize Saudi Arabia, and he's doing a pretty good job of that. Obviously, there was that whole Jamal Khashoggi thing, right? Not condoning that, but
we're not, there's also there's no direct evidence, even though we believe
who knows?
It is.
All right,
who knows what it is?
The Israel was dangerously close to having a peace deal with Saudi, and by the way, it still may happen soon, because you see some rumblings.
I think it will happen.
So, because everybody knows the reality, and the reality is this: the great Satan, if you will, of the Middle East is not Israel. It's not the Zionists. It's the Islamic Republic of Iran. We all know this, okay? They're the greatest state sponsor of terrorism. They are the group that has upheaval in the region and has groups as countries up at night. And that's the reason that Saudi and all these Sunni countries are basically saying, do we go to bed at night thinking that Israel is going to attack us or that Iran is going to attack us?
Iran.
It's not even close.
Right. It's like
And Netanyahu's plan, I got to give him credit. Before October 7th, God forbid, he said, my plan is the 99% to 1 plan. You remember this? You familiar with this?
Yeah, I think so.
He
But
said this. He goes, the 1%, the one country that does not want to do peace with me are the Palestinians. So what I'm going to do is say, you guys sit tight. I'm going to go make peace with 99% of the Arab world. And I'm going to have peace agreements and security agreements and normalized relationships because we have things that you need. You have stuff that we need. We can be trade partners, whether it's cyber, whether it's tech, whether it's intelligence, whether it's agriculture, whether it's oil, whatever it is. We can do some business here. But I'm not going to sit around waiting for these guys, Hamas, to come on board. I'm going to go out to the rest of the world. And that's what he was doing. And Iran caught wind of this as they're aware.
Iran is Iran.
And they made a move. But we'll see what happens from there. But will Netanyahu survive after this politically?
I think he will. He listen, with all, they thought he was dead many times, and they made several re-elections in the sense of his political career, and he was able to come out of the ashes like the firing phoenix. I don't know. I mean, like, listen, I'll be honest with you. This, but one last point in this, I want to go to the future presidential elections. People don't realize when you talk to a Jewish person, you say you're occupying land. It's like telling an American Indian, which is a Native American, he's occupying the land. That's exactly what they're saying. And the problem is, I think this was a 20-year campaign. First, let's uproot the idea of history with the young people. They should not know history. They should know a diluted version of history in order to then change their mindsets about all the things that are happening around the world. And that's, I think, the reality of what is happening. So that's why I don't really take into factor that Netanyahu is out of the picture. I think he's still in the picture. Yeah. I think people don't understand that potentially, whatever I guess indictments or whatever types of searching they do to see what happened, right? Investigations they do to see what happened, you will see potentially a lot of the liberal Israelis let it happen. You will see it because Netanyahu is not sitting at home on a Jewish holiday, which it was that day of Jewish holiday, and saying, "Okay, I'm not gonna let all these Hamas come in." It was a Jewish holiday. Do you know how many military guys were given leave for that holiday? Dozens, hundreds of them. People don't realize what was going on. It was like Simchat Torah was one of the biggest holidays in Judaism at that time. So it's like you coming in on Christmas and shooting down a church, God forbid. That it's the same thing. It's the same.
I'll tell you what, man, and he'll have to answer this with your neighbor, with the neighbors that Israel has. Israel's the nicest house in the worst neighborhood. There should be no holidays that you take a day off, because these guys also have a calendar, and they say, okay, it's the Sabbath, it's Simchat Torah. Today's a pretty good day while they're all taking the day off to go attack. Right. You can't.
Yeah, but how do they know all this? How do they know all this? Because they get 20,000 permits to Hamas individuals, and they were scouting. This was a liberal permission. It wasn't
That is part of it. You're right. That's how they knew what houses to go, where people live.
Exactly.
And you just look at a calendar and know what the Sabbath.
But that doesn't help enough. You need to know, okay, they're hearing conversations. Oh, I'm going to go on vacation here. I'm going to go do this there. We have a miluim. We're going to get off. Like, the art of perception was gone. They knew exactly what was going on. That's just a point that in many of the media, I think, are missing this point. There's a huge point that it was a 2-year, like, literally, I guess, operation. It wasn't an overnight situation.
Well, you have to, at the very least, respect your enemy, or at least respect their intentions. Their intent is death and destruction of the Jewish state. And as much as I love Israel, they got caught slipping.
Yes.
What happened that day?
Yes,
You
that's
know that
going to be
these
for
people are
sure.
genocidal, jihadist maniacs. There's no time for error. And I'll say one more thing. You know, the whole ceasefire now, ceasefire now. Yeah, I'm with you. But there's also two parts to this. You know, they say like never negotiate with terrorists. Well, Israel is literally negotiating with terrorists.
Every day, man.
Hello. Return the hostages. That's kind of one part of the deal.
Right.
And we'll do the ceasefire. That's like, hey, I want to buy a computer. Well, give me the money. No, I want the computer. Give me the money. Whether it's a car, whether it's a computer, whether it's a house, there's two sides to the deal here. And also, as far as the ceasefire goes, as Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan just said, yeah, Hamas is holding up the ceasefire deal. Israel's ready to do a they want their hostages back. They're ready to, Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, the guy that's running Hamas over there, doesn't care about dead Gazans. He would have stopped the war months ago, right? He knows, talk about winning perception, winning the PR war, the longer he prolongs this, the longer that Israel is going to look bad in the public perception of the world and lose credibility on the world stage. And he doesn't want a ceasefire now. They believe, jihadists, that when you die, you go to Allah and you get 72 virgins. They're ready to die.
Right.
Right?
Right.
When
They're educated for that.
When they're indoctrinated, right? So the pay for slave thing, they're paid to kill themselves and kill Jews, the family. So the mindset is totally different. And it's, you know, take a 19-year-old girl in Columbia, New York, who has never been to the Middle East, and she goes, oh, Israel genocide. Of course she thinks that. Good luck surviving out there as a young woman without putting a headdress on and wearing what you need to wear. So it comes down to education, not indoctrination. And Israel just needs to finish the job and move on.
Yeah, they're going to definitely do it. I'm sure they're going to do it. It doesn't matter who they are. Next topic, and this is a very sad weekend, or 2 weeks, for past 2 weeks in American politics, with the indictment and the I guess the judgment against Donald Trump as a president. I think peoples are forgetting one factor. There is a respect to a president, no matter who he is or who she is, right? The respect needs to always be there. I have a feeling, and I strongly feel that respect it's gone. I mean, it's just not there anymore. Specifically to, I guess, the establishment, they can be president, but when it comes to a person like a Donald Trump, cannot be a president. And I think this potentially is a lesson to teach everyone else. If you're not part of the system of the establishment, don't even think about being president. I think this is more underlining to that. What do you think? And what do you think about the future of presidential politics? I mean, I think it's going to be very eerie here.
So I think things are about to get real ugly. I think more than most, if you're talking about Donald Trump, which I assume that's what you want to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's the only one who got it.
I'm one of the few people who can give it to you straight. Why is it me? Because I'm a former never Trumper. That was me in 2016.
Okay.
People don't know that. Now,
I knew that because I watched PBD.
Okay. But now I'm a how could you Bidener? Right?
Right.
So if you go on any podcast out there, I can guarantee you one of two things. They're going to either be pro-Trump or against Trump. And I use that words intentionally. It's not pro-Trump or pro-Biden. It's pro-Trump or anti-Trump. Because 80 million people didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump. So I'm one of the few people, in my opinion, that can actually look at this thing non-emotionally and say, let's look at what's happening here. They just convicted the former president of the United States, 34 different charges from hush money from a porn star. That's where we're at. In 2006, by the way, when that happened, and then 2015 before the election. What's happening here? We did a big podcast on last Thursday. Breaking news: Trump convicted, all 34 charges, guilty. Emergency podcast. We had one of our biggest podcasts we ever did for 𝗶𝗵𝗵 podcast. 60,000, 66,000 people watching live to us talking about Trump. Just 4 dudes from business backgrounds, and Vinny's a comedian, and I'm a former nightlife promoter turned finance guy turned podcaster. They're listening to us because they trust us and they want to hear what we want to say. And Pat, very reasonable, very rational guy. He was, to put it bluntly, not happy. Vinny, full of piss and vinegar, pissed off to all, red in the face, emotional, angry patriot, pissed as fuck. Tom, pretty even-killed guy, one of the other guys in the podcast, the Biz Doc, upset, not happy. Me, neutral. And I'm just like, what's happening here? Why did this happen? Was he actually guilty? Was this a weaponization of the Justice Department? Was the jury compromised? Was the judge compromised? We know that the DA, Alvin Bragg, and 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂, we know that. Okay, what's happening here? So we know that. Should there be presidential immunity? Well, he tried that. That didn't work. What's actually happening here? So did Biden put his Department of Justice? Did he make certain moves to ensure that there was found guilty? Well, how do you sway jurors? I don't know. When Trump says that it's a rigged system, it's all against me. The whole Justice Department, it's rigged. Is he true? Is he right? So there's truth on both sides here. So here's what I think. Trump's going to actually appeal this. I actually think they're going to rule in his favor. I don't see Trump going to jail. Some people might say it's election interference. But by the way, let's go down the list here. Did Trump meet Stormy Daniels? Well, yes. They have a picture together. Is it likely that he ended up in a hotel room with her?
No doubt.
I think that's pretty likely. Is it likely they engaged in some sort of sexual activity? Probably.
Possible. Yeah.
He's not denying that. Okay. Did Michael Cohen cut a check for $140,000? David Pecker from the National Enquirer, was it the catch and kill stories? Did all this stuff happen? Probably yes. Are these felonies that are criminal to lock up a former president of the United States? I get that there's no two-tier justice system, that all people are equal in the eyes of the law. This is a former president of the United States who's the candidate for the Republican Party for the presidency in 5 months? And this is what he's dealing with? So I understand why people on the right in the MAGA camp are angry as. I understand. But I also understand, politics is ugly. They're trying to win the election at any means necessary. I'm putting myself in Alvin Bragg's position. I'm putting myself in the judge's position. I'm putting myself in the juror's position. He's probably guilty of something, whatever the check, the fraud, Michael Cohen, I don't know. But to have the president, potentially the first president ever to be charged with a crime, the first president ever to potentially go to jail, it's just very unsettling, not as a Republican, not as a Democrat, as an American, because I already know what's going to happen. The next 3 to 5 months, especially when it gets closer to the election, are going to be very, very ugly. Now, why is that? Because the MAGA base is fucking pissed. Yes? Now, the Biden base, they weren't exactly energized. There was nothing to write home about. But now, what moves you more than negative emotions and anger? I told you he was a criminal. I told you he should go to jail. Now that base, the left-wing base,
Right.
is
So
fired up.
it's a setup for that base.
So,
But I think it backfired either way. But the point is, would any other person run for president if they know they can get fabrications? Listen, there's no 100% person. There's maybe the average person is 50-50. I'm talking about morality and good decisions and bad decisions, good and bad. And the biggest joke is the people who are 80% bad and 20% good. They're the ones who are pointing the finger on President Trump. And I think that's the biggest mistake. I mean, that's the reality of what we're seeing here now. That now there is going to be there's going to be, I think they're calling it lawfare, where they're using the law. What's it called? Law, where they're using the law against you. What was it? There's a new catchphrase they're using now. I don't remember.
like
Anyway.
warfare, but lawfare.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, man. I don't know what prompted all 12 jurors to find him guilty on all 34 counts.
Yeah, that
if
also
I was
doesn't
a betting
make
man,
sense.
I'd say maybe a hung jury, maybe guilty on some, maybe innocent on some. On everything? What's going on here? Here's what I know, and here's what I'd like to believe. You know who the real jury is? The voters on November 5th.
No
Because
doubt.
we're all going to get a say to say, you know what? I want Biden 4 more years, or I want a do-over for Donald Trump. And the American electorate is going to be the final judge, jury, and proverbial executioner of Trump and Biden. So we'll see what's going to happen there. But I don't like this for America. I don't like rigged systems. I don't like our countrymen fighting with one another. And my hope and wish, and it's definitely not going to happen this election, Benny, is that one day, probably not going to happen in 2024, maybe 2028, maybe longer, that a candidate, whether it's Republican or Democrat, can get 60% of the vote. This whole 45 to 42 thing, 49, 47 is a race to the bottom. Now, I'm more on especially on the financial side of things, center right, right? Fiscal conservative. But I also believe that, sort of libertarian, like do no harm. If you're not doing harm to other people, do what you want to do, whatever you want to do in your social life, that's on you. But there's definitely the gayification of America. The Gen Z is getting woker and gayer. And I think we need to return to traditional values. I think it's pretty ironic that Trump is the avatar or the mascot for traditional values, but that's who he is at this point. So Biden, unfortunately, represents the woke left, and Trump is representing traditional values. And America's going to have a vote of what direction we're going as a country. I just hope that one day we can have a candidate that is not polarizing and Americans can get behind. So we'll see who it's going to be.
Americans have to realize leadership qualities does not mean that that's basically you can have leadership qualities and not necessarily be the person that, personality wise, you might not have the greatest personality, but you still have the leadership qualities. And that's what I think what's happening here is Trump does have leadership qualities. He built a business. He runs a hotel chain. He knows how to hire people. He has that experience. I don't think Biden has that experience. He doesn't know how to run a system. Give me a project or a business he started that succeeded. He has none to show for it. In the business world, like you and I are, right? If you start a project and you succeed on a project, that is a tall tale of who you really are. Forget the personality, not personality. Even Steve Jobs, they say his personality was a disaster, right? He was very hard, very hard on people, very rude to people. But look at what he has, Apple, right? That's you cannot judge people based on those points.
I think you're absolutely right. I think looking back at it, Trump, at least in 2016, even in 2020, was judged largely on his personality. because he didn't have a track record on policies.
Right.
And in 2020, while he was sort of running on the policies, his personality was so unappealing to many Americans that they didn't focus on the policies. Plus, there was this whole little COVID thing going on, right? So now looking back at it, I think a lot of people would say, look, did I like the mean tweets? Did I like the antics and the name calling and the behavior? No, not many people do. But how about the policies, the economy, the border, the peace, the Middle East, what's going on, tough on China, trade, tariffs. Maybe this is actually good. So now there's a side-by-side comparison of basically 4 years of Trump and almost 4 years of Biden at this point, and the voters are going to have a choice. Nobody's enthusiastic about Biden. We all know that. But the independents, who I always say that, the least crazy candidate is going to win this election. Why do I say least crazy? Because Americans are bipolar. Every 4 years, there's 100,000 people in swing states that go for the Republican, now the Democrat, now the Republican and the Democrat. I will give the Democrat another chance. All right, 4 more years, this, change, hope, this, that, the other. The same people that voted for Bush voted for Obama. The same people that voted for Obama voted for Trump, that voted for Biden, and so on and so forth. So those people who are bipolar are going to be basically determining this election. So we'll see. The beautiful thing about America, you're going to laugh here, Benny, is that we at least have the ability to have buyer's remorse.
Right.
In many countries, there's no buyer's remorse.
Right.
You elected Hamas. Congratulations, you got him. You got Xi. You got Putin. You got the mullahs in Iran. That's your guy. That's your people. In America, we at least have the foundation as a republic to say, you know what, I'm fucking done with this guy. You're fired. You're fired. So we'll see if Joe Biden is fired in 2024 and Donald Trump is rehired. We'll see.
Definitely. So I think we're going to end off the show with this. It's a good message. Adam, it's always a pleasure to have you. So I want to just do a few shout outs here. First of all, to our producers, Michael Yusupov, Benjamin, Ruben Benjamin, Boris Benjamin, for supporting the podcast that we're doing. Then we also want everybody to subscribe to Adam's show, the Suz Show. It's found on YouTube, right? I said it right? Yeah, I'm good.
It's called the Sozcast.
The Sozcast on YouTube.
Valuetainment, SOSCAST, the Sozcast. I talk a lot about the current culture in the United States, in America, with a focus on where finance meets romance, men, women, dating, masculinity, money, femininity, feminism, with some political stuff infused. It's good conversations, men and women. And then obviously I'm on the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet-David.
If you ever need a rabbi guest, I'm available.
When you come down to South Florida, you let me know.
You invite me, I come.
Let's go.
I'm game. Also, I want to mention, don't forget to get Adam on Manekt. He's on Manekt. I'm also on Manekt. I don't know why no one's reaching out to me, but hopefully they'll recognize who I am yet. But we're there. We're on Manekt. I got to do the QR codes the way you guys do it. So, yeah. And then don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. And we're going to have as much as possible Adam on our show if his time is available. We love to hear from him. I
always enjoy this. Is our second podcast in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
And we always have great conversations. It's dialogue. It's back and forth. I agree. Maybe I don't know. But that's what this is. That's the beauty of to circle back to the first thing you said, the democratization of media and content and conversation. Two dudes like us, we wouldn't have had a show 10 years ago. Look at us now.
Yeah, I'm telling you.